Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Tailosive Tech Live on YouTube. Hope you're having a good Tuesday. Apologize in advance if the audio in here is weird. Yes, I'm away from my normal desk and streaming setup. I'm actually house sitting for my grandparents. They've got some plants and they've got some things to tend to and watering I got to do. But yeah, this is not a permanent move, so if the audio is weird, it should be fixed in the future. It's just a temporary solution. But we are still on MacBook Pro webcam and microphone, so if they sound good, then that's why. And good to hear from you guys again. Randall, how about a redesign to make it round and it could double as a shaving mirror? Hey, not a terrible idea. Most people want a round Apple Watch, but Randall's out there going, what about a round iPad? You know, just a big mirror on the wall type situation. But yeah, we're kicking off the live stream. Of course, we can talk about other things that come up in the chat, but today's stream is being kicked off with Makatakara throwing off the rooms, throwing off the rumors train a little bit here with the 10th generation iPad. Let's see if I can pull it up here. Let's see. Move this. Sorry, I just realized I have texts and I don't need to show those. But I'll close that way. Okay, yeah, we're good. Multiple Chinese sources claim that the alleged renders of the 10th generation iPad shared earlier this month do not accurately depict the position of Touch ID or the front-facing camera. So that's another big redesign that we have not previously seen reported. Makatakara is claiming that Touch ID is actually going to be in the power button, and the iPad 10th gen, which Mac Rumors very gracefully already labeled as sketchy. So you know it's not super trustworthy, which honestly, they're not wrong to do so. Makatakara is not known for being that reputable. They've gotten a lot of things wrong. But still, if you go back, they're not like always wrong. They're not like a completely useless source. They've definitely gotten certain things correct in the past. So that's why I think it's at least worth discussing, maybe not doing a whole video on, but at least kicking off the live stream with, is that, okay, we have one source claiming that the next 10th generation iPad is going to be home button supported with the squared edges, and it will have USB-C and it will support Apple Pencil too, but it's not really going to look, at least on the front, like an iPad Air. It'll look more traditional like the old budget iPads, which my grandma actually has one. I think this is the 6th gen. It's a pretty old one. It's not a recent generation one, but she has this accessory, which I've had the hardest time finding. We were talking about it at some point. Comfort handle. But yeah, it acts as a great like kickstand and stuff. Not a sponsor, but I just noticed it and I thought it was kind of funny looking. It's bizarre, but it's honestly like a good grip. It holds it up in portrait mode if you want it. Like, how do I show this? It holds it up in portrait mode. Plus, it holds it up pretty high in landscape. Like, it'll even keep it upright like that, which is way higher than it would be if you had the Smart Folio cover. And then your home button is still there. Still non-laminated based on earlier reports from 91 Mobile, I think it was, that got some CAD files, and they were tweeting out pictures of the 10th generation iPad design, but it means that there's hope that potentially the 10th gen iPad might actually look a bit more like the iPad Air. The weird part though is definitely them talking about moving the webcam and the center stage camera to be more landscape optimized, so it's on the longer stretch. People have been asking for that for a while. Biggest issue with moving the camera to the landscape orientation is that that's typically where the Apple Pencil connects, but the truth is, like, if they're doing a 10th gen iPad that's a 10.5-inch display, it would likely have fairly thick bezels. In fact, bezels that are thicker even than the iPad Air 4. So if you have thicker bezels, maybe you could accommodate for the camera and the Apple Pencil charging connector on the same side, and they would just be kind of close together, but it might be possible. So I read that report, and I know Mac Rumors said it was sketchy, and I know Makatakara is not too reliable, but I was like, it kind of gave me hope, because before the CAD files, at least alleged CAD files leaked of the 10th gen iPad, I was pretty convinced that, okay, they're finally going to have some consistency. They're going to kill the home button. Now, especially that with iPad OS, they've started to software restrict certain features like the stage manager and the external monitor support. That's only on M1 iPads now, which means the latest iPad Air and the iPad Pros, they both have that. So making an iPad that looks a little bit uglier than the Air 5, but just doesn't get the stage manager or external monitor features, I think they could kind of justify selling that at a discount. Not that I'm okay with them, software locking features like that, but I just thought it was believable. Mike says there's no phone in iPad boxes. Ruined. Hey, Ben, thanks for joining the stream. Happy Tuesday. Oh, yeah, it's Tuesday. Does that mean if Mark Gurman is correct, we should get iPhone 14 event announcement in like a week? Like either a week from today or maybe a week from tomorrow? My God. That means iPhone event could potentially be 2 weeks away. 2 weeks, everybody. Wow. I've upgraded my iPhone every year since the 10, and this is the first year I don't feel compelled to upgrade. 120 hertz was the last feature I needed. Darren? Darren, is that me? I feel Darren sounds exactly like I have. I basically upgraded my iPhone every year since the iPhone 7. So I guess that's not that long. You said the 10, though, so I go back further. So since 2016, I have always bought and used the latest iPhone, but this is the first year. Just like Darren said, because of 120 hertz, I'm like, nothing else sounds that interesting to me, but that's because of my ProMotion brain. I can't really stop thinking about it. Cameras, I don't care that much about. I think cameras and phones are great. I thought the iPhone 12 cameras were great. The 13 cameras are even better. 14 cameras, I'm sure, will be even better, but are they worth spending that kind of money for that type of upgrade? Nah, probably not. D. Garcia says, I was ignoring work to listen to my professor lecture. I turned him off to watch this. Wow, I feel important. My God. Turning off the professor. Hey, Chris Norton, thanks for joining the stream. Today we're talking about the 10th generation iPad, which we might see unveiled in 2 weeks or so. It might not be that much longer, but Max Takara is disagreeing with, I think it was 91 Mobiles. I apologize if I'm quoting the wrong person, but 91 Mobiles tweeted out some alleged renders of what they think the 10th generation iPad will look like, which is still has a home button, still has a forehead and a chin, but it has a squared off chassis with an Apple Pencil connector, with Apple Pencil 2 connector, and USB-C. And now we're getting reports from Mac Takara that's claiming, no, it's going to have no home button. Touch ID will be in the power button, just like an iPad Air 4. It'll just have slightly thicker bezels, and they'll actually move the camera on the front to the landscape side instead of the shorter side, the top. Well, here it is with the normal budget iPad. You've got the camera up here and the home button down here. They're saying, see, isn't this accessory kind of cool? You just hold it on the back and you can just rotate it around. I don't know. Maybe I'm easily entertained in the fact that I haven't found that many other products like this, but like just the fact that it props it up. I came over to my grandma's house at one point and I saw her using it and she like propped it upright and it was sitting so flush and I was like, what did you find, Grandma? What is that? Although she's on a trip right now and she didn't take this with her, so that says something about the usefulness of the iPad. But hey, Ethan, thank you for your support. Enjoying iOS 16, been using your iPad more? Trying to. That's not my iPad. It just happened to be on the table here. But thank you for your support. Yeah, I love iOS 16. I'm still using Subject Lift frequently. I actually like the new Maps update. It's actually come in handy quite a bit when we're doing directions and things. It's a lot easier to add a stop when you're on a road trip and just be like, I want to stop here now. It's also been nicer to switch between like, okay, walking directions versus driving directions. They've made that a bit easier to change in Maps. But yeah, Subject Lift is by far what I use the most of. What else did they change? Oh yeah, the lock screens are kind of cool. I actually don't find myself customizing them too much. The lock screen I ended up going with is the one that shuffles through pictures automatically. I actually really enjoy changing my wallpaper. And what's been really nice about this lock screen is it will like cycle through a bunch of my favorite pictures. I don't know how it's able to tell, like it ignores certain pictures that wouldn't look good as a lock screen and uses others. And it's usually a beautiful picture of my wife. And there's so many different ones that it'll pop up throughout the day. And I'll just be like checking my phone for something. And then I'll see a new picture I haven't seen in a while. I'm like, oh, that's a cute one. So some people have the Photos widget just on their home screen. I found it more useful to just have the actual lock screen shuffle through different pictures. The only thing I wish they would add, and because I'm thinking of it now, they'll probably do it in iOS 17. I would like it if it actually disclosed like where this picture was and when it was taken. Because there's been times where I've had a really beautiful picture on my lock screen of a sunrise or a sunset or a beach or something, and I'm like, whoa, that's really cool. Where was that? And I can't trace it back. At least not that I know of. Maybe you guys know of the way to do it, but I would like a way to like scroll up or hold it and it says this picture was taken at this location at this time, and I'd be like, oh, that's where that was taken. But oftentimes it shows an awesome picture, and I'm like, I don't remember that. Like I don't know for sure, but I think this picture was taken in Puerto Rico in January, but it also could have been in Hawaii. I'm not sure. So a little way to disclose that would be nice. But hey, Alpha, oh my God, Alpha's been a member for 14 months. Hopefully I'll get to watch the event live. I hope so too, Alpha. Gurman is saying it's on the 7th. I don't know what your plans are that day. I saw your tweets about working and your boss annoying you and stuff. Sorry, didn't mean to. If Alpha's watching this at work, I just got him fired. I apologize. But hopefully you get some time to watch the event yourself. Kevin says, I think the lock screen feature is fine, but after a few minutes it gets old. Yeah, the widgets and stuff, I didn't find that useful. Daniel says, is the haptic when typing good? I've wanted that for a while. Does it feel natural? Yeah, I've actually totally forgotten that was a thing on iOS 16. I have that on, and I don't even think about it. Like, I probably wouldn't notice if it went away, but yeah, I did turn that on the second it was available, and it feels very, very nice. Very responsive, quite satisfying because Apple has really good Taptic engines. Marngel says, my mom, who's looking for a new iPad, wants to keep the home button, so she hopes the next iPad has a home button. Frankly, I think it likely will at this point. Like, as much as I really want uglier iPad Air 4 to be sold at, $400 or something like that, $399, maybe $429. I just, because of the iPhone SE price hikes, I feel like there has to be an iPad price hike. It's been oh my God, that was crazy. My hand got caught on the charger. There's not very many wall outlets in here. So I have to kind of stretch the cable. And no, before you say MagSafe would have avoided that, for one, it pulled out the power brick from the wall. Secondly, MagSafe, I'm charging it from the opposite side of the MacBook. So my hand caught the cable and it pulled out my 140 watt adapter. I think we're okay, everyone. I think nothing exploded. I think we'll be safe. But that terrified me for a minute. Alpha says, I'm cleaning my car right now, and no, I don't get fired, just my coworker. Ah, gotcha. I was cleaning my car today too. It's a good idea. Haven't done it in a while, and I'm like, man, I should do this more often. Sorry, I probably ignored someone's question. I think it's pretty likely that the iPad 10th Gen will have a home button, just because the truth is, average consumers walking into an Apple store wanting to buy an iPad will probably not notice or care about the differences between the iPad Air 4, or the iPad Air 5, if that's still $599, and then they introduce a slightly uglier budget iPad that looks the same but just has slightly bigger bezels, and they sell that for $200 less. Yeah, everyone's going to buy that one. No one's going to buy the iPad Air. Oh my God, I'm sorry. This feels like it happens whenever I'm recording or live streaming something and the phone's far away. My grandma has a home phone, which I haven't had in years, and I'm not used to. I don't know why people have home phones. There's probably a way to turn it off. I just haven't figured out how to do it yet. The UI on those old phones is clunky, but they just start ringing. Anyway, sometimes I'm just lost in a different person's universe. I think that the 10th gen will likely have a home button, but Mac Dakar says it won't. So that's where the conflicting reports come in. And maybe we should run a poll on this live stream and see what you guys... Do you think Mac Dakar is more accurate? Do you think 91 Mobile is more accurate? We'll see. Oh, D. Garcia says they needed a break from being responsible. I get that. Sometimes the responsibility mode doesn't... The responsibility focus mode doesn't shut off, and we need a second. Daniel says, I'm hoping there's new features for the 14 Pro that hasn't leaked yet, something that will be exciting. I feel like every year there usually is. There's usually one or two things, maybe not super useful or super exciting, but there's typically like one or two things that you're like, oh yeah, that would be kind of nice. I didn't think about that. whether it's I think it's Wi-Fi 6E is rumored to be on the new iPhones, and that might enable some new use case that we didn't think about before. Um, yeah, there's just little nifty things here and there. Uh, those California earthquakes are sudden and violent. Yes, that's what it was. It was an earthquake. Can you set a specific wallpaper for light and dark mode in iOS 16? I don't think so, but I'm probably not the person to ask. I should know that, but I don't. I just love the shuffling wallpaper. It just goes to different random pictures throughout the day, and they're usually really nice pictures. I think the budget iPad will be an Air 4 with non-laminated display. Okay. Katrina's already weighing out. So while I'm thinking about it, let me just ask the poll. Ask the audience, will the 10th gen iPad have a home button? That's really what we're talking about. If it doesn't have a home button, it's not going to have a forehead and a chin. I don't think most people are suggesting that. It's a yes or no. You got to pick one. Daniel says, I think maybe a new Bluetooth codec for high-res audio with AirPods 2, but not sure. Yeah, there's some possibility with that. Apple's kind of alluded to it. I've also seen some rumors that Apple might use ultra-wideband connectivity for AirPods, and that might be how they support, lossless or at least higher bitrate audio. Maybe not lossless per se, but do you think the new M2 MacBooks will integrate Face ID to the notches to the Pro models? Probably not. I feel like we would have heard about it by now if they were planning on doing that. And also, the display lid for MacBook enclosures is 4 millimeters thin. It's insanely thin. And the thinnest we've ever seen Face ID get is on the 2018 iPad Pros at 5.9 millimeters. So it's still basically 2 millimeters thinner than the thinnest true depth camera system. And also, when asked about that, there were a lot of people that, when the MacBook got a notch, they were like, hey, why doesn't the MacBook get Face ID if it has a notch? Because every other device that you make that has a notch has Face ID. And Apple said that Touch ID on Macs makes more sense because you have to put your hands by the keys. And, if Face ID could work passively, but you would still need an additional input method, just like with the iPad or just like with your phone, it unlocks when it sees you, but then you have to swipe up to unlock or, double press the side button to activate Apple Pay and that kind of thing. So you would have to press some kind of key or button on the MacBook anyway, even if it had Face ID. So their logic is might as well just keep it as Touch ID because that's cheaper and it's right there. As much as I would like Face ID on the MacBook, I do have to agree that it probably wouldn't save that much time, especially because I'm unlocking my MacBook with my watch anyway. So it's like, as cool as that would be, is probably not going to happen. Whether it's from technical limitations or not, I don't know. But I still think that Apple's probably comfortable with Touch ID. Have you also seen the sketchy report that there will be an iPhone 14 mini? I'm hoping it's true, but I have my doubts. Yeah, I think I briefly saw that one. It definitely didn't sound like anyone reputable. Kevin says, I don't think you can set light mode wallpaper versus dark mode. That's a bummer. They should do that. Kazi says, do you think the budget iPad would switch to USB-C? See, that's the thing that both parties are saying. Both 91 Mobile and Mac Takara are disagreeing with each other, but they're both claiming that the new generation iPad, the budget one, will have USB-C and Apple Pencil too. So that would make it by far the most exciting budget iPad upgrade ever because basically even the latest generation budget iPad essentially looks like this one. They haven't changed since they launched. It was like March of 2017, I think, when they first launched it. I remember that morning. I got up really early because I read the news right when I checked my phone, and I jumped out of bed and made a video on it because it was so out of left field. Some people were expecting Apple to have a March event, and they didn't have one, but they just had this site refresh where they dropped the red iPhone 7, which there had never been like a mid-cycle color drop before. At least I don't think so. Maybe there was the white iPhone, but that I think they waited for the... It had been a while at least, okay? I can't remember when the white iPhone 4 dropped, but it had been a while since Apple, released an iPhone, wait 6 months, and then drop a new color option. And so the red one came out, and then the budget iPad came out. I feel like there was one other thing. I don't remember what it was, but I just jumped up, and I was like, whoa, guys, Apple made a $300 iPad. That's so crazy. And you could probably look up that video. I bet it's still up. Do you ever miss having a smaller phone? Not really. I'm genuinely like, I'm a big fan of the compact form factor and its advantages, and I'm also a big fan of the large form factor. And there's a lot of situations where I'm like, oh, thank God I have this big phone. I guess there's a few instances where like it likes to slip out of my pocket or it starts to feel a bit heavy when I'm using it one handed for extended periods. And I'm like, that wouldn't be a problem if I had the small phone. But there's not enough instances. Like, I had a whole video between, if you guys recall, I did a whole skit between like the 12 mini and the 12 Pro Max. I was really genuinely torn between those two phones because I really loved both those sizes so much. I could see myself living comfortably with either. And the ultimate deciding factor was like, if I'm happy with either, you should probably fall back on the one that's cheaper. Let price be the deciding factor. And the 12 mini was like $400 cheaper. And the 12 mini was great. Wasn't really expecting that one to get promotion, but I was hoping that the 12 Pro Max would get promotion, and it didn't. So the fact that it didn't was like, okay, let me vote with my wallet, tell Apple, yes, make more mini iPhones, and I'm not going to reward you for making the Pro Max because it doesn't have promotion, which is what I think the Pro iPhone should have. And obviously, voting with my wallet didn't pay off. I was still in the minority because it seems like they're not making a 14 mini, but yeah, I definitely wish they would. I hope that sketchy report is right, as sketchy as it sounds and as unreliable as the source is. Wouldn't that be a great surprise at the end of the day? Wouldn't that be hilarious if everyone was wrong and we just come forward and they're like, boom, 14 mini is a thing. Everyone's like, what? That would be fun. I think that would be a wonderful surprise. The battery life didn't bother you? No, not really. Just because with my work life, I think people, maybe it's different depending on your lifestyle, but with my line of work, I'm often at a location where I can charge my phone. So like, yeah, my 12 mini died more frequently, of course, than my 13 Pro Max did. The 13 Pro Max battery life is great, but like, if my battery got low, I had MagSafe around, and I love MagSafe, and that was fun. I got to drop it on, and it makes the sound. Or, I charge it every night. The 13 Pro Max battery life is frankly overkill. Like, it's insanely good, but it's oftentimes like I end the day with 50%, 60% charge. The only time I kill my phone in a day or need to charge it at the end of the day is typically when I'm using maps, or actually several instances in the past year I've noticed that kills my 13 Pro Max battery is when you're in an area with no service, or when you're traveling a lot and your phone keeps switching between cell towers. So if I'm on a long drive, it drains the battery so fast. And actually, my grandparents live in a very rural area. They're in like a dead zone. So you can kind of tell here by my icons at the top, there's no service where I am. Luckily, they have Wi-Fi, so I can live stream, thank God. But and this is a dead zone for everybody. They've lived in this house a while. Before I was on Mint Mobile, I was on Verizon. When we came here with Verizon, the service still didn't work. We came here with AT&T. No, we had family friends here with AT&T. It didn't work. So no cell coverage here at all. Thank goodness they have decent Wi-Fi. But yeah, it was whenever you have no service, I should probably just turn on airplane mode, so it's not scanning for networks all the time. That will drain the battery a lot faster. But again, with my line of work, I'm not like out away from chargers for extended periods. So I never thought the battery life on the 12 mini was that bad. I was like, if it's bad, then just, buy a little battery bank or charge it in the car. Your car typically has something you can plug into. Even our old car from 2007 that's outside has a little 12-volt outlet, and we use a little Bluetooth transmitter, and that has USB ports in it. So if my phone's ever low while we're on the road, we just plug in a lightning cable or a MagSafe cable and charges it. That explains the landline. Yeah, but you could do Wi-Fi calling. Like, that's what I turned on. So I can still get I have gotten phone calls, so that even though I'm in an area with no service, as long as you have Wi-Fi, you can just, at least Mint Mobile supports that. I think everyone does. I wouldn't buy a mini phone, but I'm not against options. Yeah, exactly. That's the right way to think of it, Alpha. Is like, yeah, if someone wants the mini one, go for it. Let's see. Destructo Disc says, I'm on a 13 mini with two kids who I share my 5G to their iPads. When we are out, heaven forbid I need GPS. My battery dies in like 10 minutes. I'm moving to a Pro next. I'm sorry, Destructo. That's a bummer. Yeah, especially hotspot. I guess I don't do that very frequently, but yeah, hotspot definitely eats through battery quickly. Like my friend Nick kills his battery all the time, and he has a 13 Pro Max as well. Um, Michael says, "I wonder if they'll keep selling the 13 mini or 12 mini." I think at least one of them has to stick around. Like, I was really convinced that the iPhone 12 and 12 mini would get discontinued because the 13 and 13 mini were so close. There was so little differences between the 12 and 13. I was like, "There's no way they would keep them," but they did. They sell them alongside the 13 and 13 mini, and there's not going to be a 14 mini most likely. I hope I'm wrong on that, but it's at this point, you know, I've been following iPhone leaks for many years, and when you're this late in the game and you're getting like CAD leaks and case manufacturers are, you know, I don't think I didn't sign anything, so I think I'm okay to talk about this. But I'm getting emails from case manufacturers asking me if I want to try out iPhone 14 cases that they have ready. And they don't have a mini size ready. So I assume at this point that the mini's not happening. But yeah, I think there's a moderate chance that the 12 mini gets discontinued just because they probably can't handle another $100 price reduction, because then it's going to be $499, which is that what it is? Is it $599 right now? Yeah, I think it is. It's probably with a contract. It's really more like $629. Um, but yeah, typically if Apple keeps an iPhone around, they usually discount it for $100 the following year. Um, so if it got that cheap, that's like 70 bucks or $100 more than the SE, which feels way too good to be true. Yeah, it does. It does say $599, huh? Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if either the 12 mini doesn't get a price decrease or potentially it just gets discontinued because they're tired of making it and maybe not that many people are buying it. I don't know. Um, let's see. 13 mini has been amazing for me battery life wise. It lasts around 6 hours when the 12 mini lasted me less than 3 hours. Sadly, have to upgrade this year though because of carrier locks. Oof, carrier locks suck. I'm sorry, Wyatt. That's weird though. I didn't expect the battery life to be that different for you. 6 hours versus less than three? I didn't expect the 13 mini to double your battery life. That's crazy. Um, Based on going from mini to max, I would think you would not like the mini. How else does one interpret that data point? I don't think. I'm a weird guy, you know. I like saturated things. I like if a car is gonna be red, I think it should be really really red. I don't like muted colors. You know, I didn't like the iPad Air 4 colors because they were like very light shades. And the same thing with sizes. Like if you're gonna make a small phone, make it real small. And that's what they did with the mini. It was even smaller than the SE, which I didn't think Apple would go that small again, and they did it. And it was fantastic. Really compact, really easy to hold, very comfortable. But if I want a big phone, I want a really big phone. And this phone is massive. It's got a giant screen, huge camera bump. And I know there's bigger phones out there, but still, like when I show it to people, they're like, geez, your phone is huge. So the only size I'm really not a fan of is the in between. The 6.1 inch iPhone is like not small enough to be super portable and comfortable, but not big enough to allow for that much extra screen space. So I feel like it's the weaker side of both. Whereas I feel like you get a lot of advantages with the huge phone and a lot of advantages with the small phone. Um, but yeah, I still enjoy the mini. My sister still has mine, and we saw her last month. I think was it July? Yeah, we saw her last month, and she still loves it. She still uses it all the time, and she's a big fan. And her husband also uses the exact same 12 mini. Do you think you'd use your iPad more if you still kept the 12 mini? Possibly. I don't know. I would probably still have the same dilemma of using my iPhone for continuity camera. Wait, are you assuming that I have two iPhones? Like I would have the 13 Pro Max and the 12 mini? That's probably not what you're asking, but um, I'm not sure actually. I guess the main reason I kind of boycotted the iPad for a while was because, oop, there's the alarm. Everything's going off today. The main reason I kind of boycotted the iPad was because I was just so genuinely annoyed with iPadOS 16. and I was very, very excited for all of the upgrades and changes they made with iOS 16. So there's a good chance that even if I had the 12 mini, I would probably see how much I could get done with it, and I would use it for thumbnail creation as well. So I don't think if I would have kept the 12 mini, I would have used my iPad more personally. Um, I miss the clamshell MacBooks. Not me. No, thank you. It would make sense for the 13 mini to stay the same price. Why would they reduce the price when it's going to have the same chips as the new iPhone 14s? That, and also there's no like direct successor to it. That's the weird thing. Has Apple ever discontinued a size before? I guess they kind of got rid of the 5.8-inch model, right? Like, okay, they were on the 3.5-inch size for a while, then they upped it to 4, and then once the iPhone 6 came around, they started doing 2 sizes. And ever since then, we've pretty much had 2 sizes of some kind. You know, we had the 8 and the 8 Plus. Then after that, we had 10S, 10S Max, which kind of fell in the same place as those 2 sizes as before. But yeah, they've never really done something like, here's the ultra small iPhone, now we're getting rid of it. I guess they kind of killed off the first gen SE. That might be somewhat similar. But, yeah, like there's not really a 14 mini that's coming out that would replace it. So that makes me feel like the 13 mini might just stay at the exact same price that it's currently at. Is that reasonable to assume? I don't know. Do you think Apple has given up on a serious attempt to take on the smart home market? I don't know if given up is the right name. I feel like they just never tried that hard. I mean, they gave up on routers, I guess, but yeah, like I feel like if they were serious about the smart home, they would have made actual accessories. And maybe some people think that's too weird or Apple should outsource that to other companies, but I disagree wholeheartedly, especially after having multiple smart home accessories get discontinued, or the company I bought them from goes bankrupt or gets bought out, and then my old ones don't work anymore. Like, I'm so sick of that. It's happened to people with thermostats. It's happened with light bulbs. It's happened with smart outlets that, like, no, I'm so sick of having to do this third-party handshake where I try to get the third party to communicate properly with the first-party HomeKit support. They try to make it simple, and it just doesn't work. I would really only be interested in buying smart home stuff again if it was all first-party, all built by Apple. Like, I think Apple should make routers. I think Apple should make smart outlets. I think they should make thermostats and smart switches. And, you know, if they really wanted to get serious about it, that's what they should do. And they've never really done that. So I don't know if I would say given up. They've just never really tried. They discontinued the 8 Plus without discontinuing the 8. Well, they discontinued the 8 and the 8 Plus at the same time. It was just they introduced the SE2, and that was basically an 8 rebranded. So, yeah, I guess you're right. They got rid of the 5.5-inch. But it had a very similar, you know, this is, footprint-wise, this is almost exactly the same as an 8 Plus. It's very close. My TP-Link bulbs have been super unreliable lately. Exactly, David. I've had those too. It's like, I'm not interested in a smart home until one company like Apple is completely in control of the entire experience. I don't want to go through this whole like third-party company. You have to sign up with them and download their app and have a different email and a password just so that you can link it to their HomeKit. Like, no, it needs to be like AirPods. It needs to be like when you take the switch out of the box or you set up the thermostat, just a little white pop-up shows up as soon as it gets power on your phone, and you can just hit connect. And boom, and all of the firmware is handled by Apple, and it connects through your Apple ID, and that all that's controlled and all of that's monitored by Apple. Like, that's the only way I would do it. Until then, regular switches and lights and stuff are not that complicated. They're not necessarily something that needs to be smart. Sometimes just walking into a room and flipping a switch is not that hard. You know, this is supposed to make your life easier. Just try to set it up through your third-party app and set a password, and here's your changes. Oh, there's a firmware update for it. Oh, it doesn't work anymore because you changed your network settings, and if your Wi-Fi password changes, then all of your lights don't work. It's like, I thought this was supposed to make things easier, and yet all that stuff typically just makes it way harder to use your lights. It's annoying. Yeah, I've seen the Snazzy Labs video. It requires a bunch of upfront work for it to eventually become easy. My point is, it needs to be easy to set up and then easy to maintain. What Was nice to easily reconnect the HomePod Mini the other day. Just have to tap a button and wait for the allow buttons to appear versus downloading app and syncing everything. Yeah, because Apple made it. They designed it from the ground up, so it just works. Whereas all the other services, you gotta do these crazy connections and integrations that are annoying. I bought a smart plug, then the app turned Chinese one day, so I couldn't use it anymore. That's hilarious. I've never had the app turn Chinese, but I did buy a smart plug, and then the company went out of business, so I can't download the app to set up the plug anymore. So it literally just, it cannot work. It's just perfect example of e-waste. They designed a product, they sold it, and now they don't provide updates for it, so you can't set it up. Like, it's ridiculous. Do you think the 6.1-inch iPhone could be 6.2 to 6.4 for the 14 Pro because the camera bump is really close to interfering with the MagSafe, and if it's getting bigger than the 6.1-inch size would be unusable? I've been thinking about this a while, the MagSafe thing, because the camera bump continues to just get bigger and bigger. I think they might eventually... the more I've thought about this, the less problems I think they will have. They might actually just start moving the MagSafe ring lower. As stupid as that sounds, and as ugly as that sounds, it doesn't actually cause that many problems, right? Because at first you're like, well, the cases and the accessories won't work. And it's like, yeah, but if your camera bump's bigger, those cases aren't going to work anyway, right? Like, you're not going to be using a 13 Pro case on a 14 Pro, regardless of where the MagSafe ring is, because the camera bump's too big, so your old case won't work. What about the MagSafe battery pack? Well, on the Pro phones, where the camera bump is the issue, you already have padding around where the battery pack is basically the chassis size of the mini iPhone. It's not that big. So here's a picture of it. They probably have it on the back. Yeah. So like on the 6.1-inch iPhone, they could easily lower it and the battery packs would still fit. It would just be a little bit off from where the old ones were, but it wouldn't fall off the side or anything. It could still latch on correctly. Hey, Nick, thank you for becoming a supporter. Appreciate that. I'll see you in the next members only stream as well. Funny you're talking about e-waste when you're an Apple fanboy. Yeah, Apple does more for e-waste than most. They got rid of the charge brick, which helped reduce a lot of e-waste, and everyone hated them for it and then copied them for it. But yeah, I doubt Samsung or Google would be removing the charge brick from the box unless Apple did it, so credit where credit is due. How's your MagSafe Duo holding up? Thinking about getting one? Fantastic. Absolutely no issues with that product other than the fact that it has lightning, but that's the way it's designed. In terms of just wear and tear, yeah, I use it every night. I used it last night. I charge my AirPods on it. I charge my watch and my phone on it. Like, it's aged great. It's still super compact, way better than AirPower ever would have been. It can slip in my pocket. It's very small, very compact, and very satisfying to drop the phone there. It's great. Really like to see an Apple Watch with an iPhone 13 Pro design. Would you? Do you mean squared off? In which case, no. I've seen renders and concepts of what a squared off Apple Watch would look like, and I wasn't too impressed, at least compared to the Apple Watch. But yeah. Let's see. They create more e-waste than most do too. I mean, like, how much is that is correlated to just sales? Is it because they sell really well? But I feel like Apple usually is the company to try to see what they can get rid of, see what they can remove from the package more so than other companies do. They create more period than their competitors. Yeah, maybe that's why they wanted to remove the charge brick. Yeah, MagSafe Duo is king for traveling. I agree, David. There's not a more compact charger that you can just throw in your pocket that quickly. Just make the iPhone look like a DSLR with phone functionality. A lot of people kind of treat it that way at this point already. Kevin says, I have a smart bulb and I always walk to the lamp and turn it on rather than open the home app or ask Siri and wait for her to respond. Exactly. I feel like that's ended up being the case for a lot of people. Is they're just like, it's too much work. And I'm too worried every time I ask Siri to do something and it fails, then I have to figure out why it failed and then I got to fix it. It's like, don't bother. What happened with the squared off Apple Watch? So I'm convinced it was a fake story from the beginning, But a lot of people were thinking that that was supposed to come out last year, and then there was some production holdup, so they decided to whip out the Series 7 design last second, and that was why the Series 7 looks the way it did. I don't think that was the plan at all, but that's what a lot of people believed, and they said, we'll get the squared off Apple Watch this year. Now, with only a couple of weeks until the iPhone event, we're hearing people say, actually, no, it's not squared off. Actually, the design of the Series 8 is basically the same as the 7, but there is a Pro Watch that's not rumored to have squared off chassis, but it will have flat glass. So kind of like this, if you will, budget iPad-esque, where it's like rounded on the back, but flat on the top. And that allows for a larger screen in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, it's not really going to look the way that everyone was hoping it would look, basically. I know someone who just has a 13 Pro Max just for photos and video production, but has 4 other phones for other things. Yeah, I feel like that's kind of what it's turning into. You think we will see Apple Pay later in the RC build of iOS 16? Oh yeah, that's not out yet, is it? It's probably launching around when iOS 16 drops for the public. So I would assume so. I don't know about the RC build, but Abbas doesn't even think the Pro Watch is happening. It's really hard to replace batteries, and sorry, but the brick was not removed for the environment. It was removed. It's one less thing they have to include for free. That's the reason. All right, you can continue to believe that it's all powered by greed. I think that the whole market is going to be very depressing the more you think that way, because I guess Samsung did it for the greed too. But they were polling people, if you remember, before they removed the charge brick. They sent out polls around and they said, are you using the included adapter with your iPhone? And I think it's very likely, at least anecdotally from what I've noticed, that most people were not using the included adapter. So they realized that objectively, if you reduce the size of the box, you can ship more iPhones with less carriers, with less planes, less boats. It doesn't require as much space to ship when you're able to slim down on the packaging. That's a win for the environment, whether you like it or not. You can fight all day on, well, Apple can't make money and be good for the environment. The only way you can be good for the environment is if you lose money, but then there's not going to be much incentive for companies to ever. So I applaud companies for finding profitable ways to, do things for the environment. And Apple uses a lot of recycled materials, recycled parts. They melt down a lot of components, melt down a lot, like mercury-free, beryllium-free. They do a bunch of things to ensure that they're clean on their supply chain, and they're committing to carbon neutral by 2030. So, okay, you can still complain that, they could be doing better, though. If that's where you're at, I feel like you're always going to be there. They covered their headquarters with solar panels, and they power energy back into the grid. They're investing in more renewable energy that powers their cloud servers. I'm all in favor of, there needs to be financial incentive to also make things better. Like, we can't just expect all companies to lose money for the environment until they go bankrupt. That's not sustainable either. But thank you, David, for your signing up. I appreciate that. What happened with the Google Watch? Well, they announced it, but they didn't say they would ship it until later in the year, I think. For the iPhone, I can somewhat forgive removing the brick, but why remove it from the Apple Watch packaging? My parents have trouble finding a charge brick when they bought their first Apple Watches. I think it was partly knowing that a lot of people already either have Apple Watches and they can use their old charge pucks, or just encouraging that if you do need a charge brick, only the people that absolutely need it get it, instead of having a bunch of charge bricks that sit around doing nothing. Lightning cable really doesn't affect me. I always charge with MagSafe and never transfer large files wired. Yeah, it's weird that they still include it, but I guess it's easy that there's lots of USB-C and Lightning cables around. So if you do use a USB-C charge brick, then you don't have to buy the additional cable. But the primary motivation was definitely slimming down on the packaging so that they didn't have to, when you're shipping tens of millions of something, slimming down on packaging does make a big impact on your global emissions. When you're shipping iPhones, tens of millions of iPhones every month around on trucks to delivery centers, from your suppliers to your destinations on trains, and you're shipping them from China. If they cared about what users thought, they would have gave users a choice, which would have been good for the environment. Still, it wouldn't. No, I disagree. I think that if you just made it a free option, everyone would have done it, because oftentimes, like, look on the freeways. There's a bunch of litter, okay? There's a lot of people that care about the environment, but there's clearly a lot of people that don't. And the people that don't are just going to choose the free thing. If there's an option at checkout for a free charge brick, they're going to say, yeah, I want the free charge brick. Yeah, because it's free. Why not? I'll take it. It's a good deal. And then whether or not they use it, it's already, the extra shipping has been, there had to be a financial loss. I mean, you could look at it as that way. The iPhone got a $20 price increase, and you get a $20 discount if you just don't order the charge brick. And I don't think most people did. I think most people just continue to use their old chargers, because most people buying an iPhone, yeah, like Mike said, they did give users a choice. It's called the Apple Store accessory tab. If you really want a charge brick, you're still welcome to buy one. In fact, now you'll get a fast charging one for $20, and you've already got the cable. You've already got the cable you need. I think it actually would have been worse for the environment if they let you buy one for free, because everyone would have taken it. I'm surprised we all get a bunch of bricks instead of getting some outlets with USB ports. They do exist. They do, but they're also absurdly more expensive. I have some friends that just built a house, and like a standard 110 outlet costs something like, this isn't an exact comparison, but it's basically like the standard outlet, like that one, costs $5, but the same outlet with USB ports costs like $25. It was like 5 times the price for the exact same thing. It just happened to have USB ports. So when they were picking out outlets for their house, they were like, okay, no. Like they put one, I think, near their nightstand, or they put one somewhere where they thought, like the kitchen, like where they thought they would use a USB accessory. But trying to do the whole house with USB ports is like, you could do it, but it's going to cost you several $100s more. I don't know if that's changed since they built their house. That was about a year ago. So it maybe they go cheaper now, but let's see. The USB brick situation was a money grab. Please just don't admit it. I admit that they are more profitable that way. I'm just saying you can acknowledge that something is more profitable and better for the environment. And I think that that's an okay thing. If there's a motivation for a company, look, to a company, money is like breathing. That's what a company is for, unless it's a nonprofit, but that's not what makes phones like. Nonprofits can't make phones like this. You're not going to get products that like AirPods or iPads from nonprofits. Companies, in order to do anything, software development, hardware development, retail, customer service, all of that requires money. So, of course, they're going to prioritize what makes them money. To act like they're not going to prioritize that is absurd and ridiculous. To me, it's like saying all you care about is breathing. All you do is breathe all day. Why? Like, you don't care about the environment. All you want to do is breathe. It's like, well, I care about other things too, but I have to breathe to survive. Just like that, a company has to make money to survive. So finding ways that are environmentally beneficial to make a profit, I think, are a good thing. That's why I'm such a big fan of Tesla. They're very profitable, and I think they're very good for the environment. It's not like one or the other. A lot of people are like, no, they just did that for money. It's like, well, sure. It probably helped their margins. I also think that the year they removed it, the cost of production of the iPhone went way up. If you've been following the most expensive components of iPhones for several years, you know that the cost to build the iPhone 12 was way higher than the iPhone 11 because they switched to OLED and they redesigned the chassis. So they didn't get to reuse the old iPhone 11 design. They had to update the aluminum mills that cut out the chassis of everything, and they switched to OLED. And OLED is from Samsung, which costs way more than the LCD panels that they were using in the iPhone 11 series. Drew hasn't seen a cobalt mine then. Apple uses more cobalt than Tesla does. In fact, I ordered a Tesla and there's absolutely zero cobalt in it. Half of the vehicles Tesla builds don't have any cobalt, and the few cells that do have very little. But yes, actually, I have seen a cobalt mine. But thank you for the super chat, Chris. He says, I like my iPhone i4 chargers. What, the old 5-watt brick? You mean the tiny ones? Yeah, they are compact. I'll give them that. I just wish they were gallium nitrate like the Anker ones. Yeah, like David says, I have a drawer full of old bricks. I think most people do, and that's why Apple realized it was about time to get rid of them. But thank you for your support, Visualizer. Any for-profit company wants more money. Yeah, like if you followed the production costs of iPhones, you know that the iPhone 13 costs way more to build than the iPhone 11. more complex cameras, also 5G modems from Qualcomm. Those absolutely cost way more money than the 4G modems they were using before. And the OLED display, the display is the most expensive part of the phone. And they switched from a basic 326 ppi resolution LCD display, the liquid retina with the thick bezels, up to an OLED display, Super Retina, with a much higher PPI, straight from Samsung. That alone was likely a huge increase of components. So when they were building a much more expensive, much higher end iPhone, they were likely looking for ways to cut costs. This is going to have 5G. This is going to have fancier display. This is going to have updated chassis. Let's find a way to preserve our margins. What's something we could take out that not that many people are using? The charge brick. We ran a poll on that. Most people aren't using the charge brick that came with their phone. Most people buying an iPhone at this point are coming from an older iPhone, which means that because the iPhone, for some reason, is still using Lightning, even if you bought an iPhone 5 way back in 2012 and you didn't upgrade until 2020, you could still use the exact same charger your iPhone 5 came with. So Apple is responsible to its shareholders, not the environment. I mean, legally, yes, but at the same time, there are laws for the environment that they have to abide by. But I'm just saying, as far as big trillion-dollar companies go, Apple does quite a lot for the environment, more so than many other billion-dollar tech companies. And they're willing to. I think it took a lot of confidence to ditch the charge brick. I do think they knew there would be backlash for that, and they at least talked about it. They came forward on stage and said, this is why we're doing this. Other companies were just like, Apple's crazy. How? They're so stupid. Why would you buy an iPhone, you idiot? You're supposed to buy our phone. It comes with a charge brick. And then the following year, they're like, oh, yeah, and then we got rid of the charge brick. So, yeah. Anyway, and then they just kind of don't address it because they're scared. They're shy. Apple had the confidence to actually come forward and say, like, hey, we don't need to do this anymore, and this is going to make an impact. So you're welcome. And I think that is, I think that's way more confident and way more ballsy than most of these other tech companies, which are just going to mock Apple for doing it until they follow suit and do the same thing. So, yeah. Would start making gallium nitrate chargers at some point. I think they have. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the dual USB-C port charger that they offer with the M2 MacBook Air, I think that one's gallium nitrate. Or at least someone told me it was. It may be not, but yeah, at some point they have to do it. I don't know why they aren't, to be honest. I'm actually very frustrated that this charge brick that came with my MacBook Pro still doesn't have a second USB-C port. Apple manufactures a 35-watt brick with 2 ports and also a 140-watt brick, but just with 1 port. And no, I don't need the fast charging, personally. Hey, Damitha, thank you for becoming a supporter. That's very kind of you. I actually just recently updated the badges. So over time, the longer you're a channel supporter, which is $2 a month, by the way, you just get behind the scenes live streams and posts and polls on what future videos will be on and stuff. You also get the badges next to your name, but now YouTube has support for like badges updating after 3 years and 4 years, which I thought, you know what, I better start updating because there's some incredibly generous supporters like Marngel and Chris Norton and Alpha DeWolf that have been supporting for over a year now, and their badge keeps getting cooler over time, so I just updated those last night. Maybe after 4 years they'll let me update it again. That would be cool. Margel says, I think the 140-watt charger is also gallium nitrate. I don't think it is, because Anker makes a 140-watt gallium nitrate brick, and it's much smaller than this. I'm not sure why this one is so much bigger than theirs, if it is gallium nitrate. Nonprofit companies still make money as well. It's just a tax designation. Well, they definitely don't make stuff at the same scale of most of the tech products that we're buying. Jacob says the 140 watt is gallium nitrate. Then why is it so huge? I don't get it. I don't get it. It could. I've seen Anchors. It's not that big. iPhone BOM as a cost, so does software. About 7 years of updates. That's true. Apple's sending software support to your iPhone or iPad for 6 or 7 years isn't free. That requires software engineers. And because software engineers requires a lot of training and a lot of expertise, those people get paid a lot. And Apple wants to pay those people a lot. So I don't get when people are just like, no, it was just for money. Of course it is. It's a company. My Tesla will be white. Yeah. Um, do you think Apple killing live wallpapers with iOS 16 is telling us what the feature was a totally useless gimmick? I thought the first iPhone that came the factory without 3D touch should have dropped that. Uh, I think live photos have been around for quite some time. They could have killed it with 3D touch and they haven't. I really like live photos still. I don't want them to kill it. I mean, the easy thing about live photos, though, is that you don't have to, it doesn't hurt anything. You can turn it off really easily. The thing with 3D touch is that it was adding complexity to the manufacturing process. So Apple saw room for, okay, we can improve battery life, we can lower production cost if we ditch 3D touch. Ditching live photos wouldn't lower production cost or lower complexity. I mean, if you don't like live photos, turn it off. If you do like it, turn it on. If anything, live photos actually helps Apple because they probably take up more space, which fills up your iCloud faster, which encourages you to take more, pay for more iCloud storage. So I don't see much motivation for them to get rid of it. I know some people don't like it, but I use it a lot. Pretty much any picture I take, I'll just hold down to see what else was going on that day. Or like today we were taking pictures where I was jumping. There's some pretty crazy pictures. You can see me like if I'm jumping like that, having the live photo so I can change it to the exact right frame I want is pretty handy and that kind of thing. I'm thinking of buying a certified refurbished iPad Pro. Which one should I get, or should I wait for the new iPad Pros to see if they get a discount? I would say wait if you can, because we might potentially only be like a month and a half away from new iPad Pros, which would further decrease the price of the refurbished Pros. But if you're on the fence, J Money, I would just say the 11-inch. That's a really solid size. It's the most popular size. That's what most people are looking for. It'll be a sad day when the iPhone 10 was not supported anymore. All I know, Trash Teen, is that whenever the iPhone 10 stops getting support, no other phone that came out in 2017 will still be getting software support. Every other phone that came out in 2017 will be long discontinued by that point. I never said they hate the environment. I recognize they do good in some areas, but I push back on the charger because there was a better way to do that. And I respectfully disagree. I think that including it as a free option would have encouraged more people to get it. And by upcharging people and saying, no, if you need the charge brick, you got to pay the $20, that discouraged people from going, oh, I'll just take the free brick. Because if you offer someone something for free, they'll take it. It doesn't even really matter if they plan on using it. Like AirPods, or like, even if you already have AirPods, people will still take the free AirPods at the MacBook deal, and they'll just turn around and sell them or whatever, or they'll just have another pair to give to someone or something. And I think that by not offering the charge brick for free, that resulted in less emissions, and only people who got charge bricks were those who really needed it, which weren't that many. I think most people were fine. I love using live photos to make GIFs. Yeah, that's a good. Also, if I take pictures of water and it's on like a loop, that's really cool. Or like I've taken a lot of pictures of fire, like a campfire, and you just loop it and the fire just keeps burning. It's like a little GIF. Yeah, it's nice. I like it. I like live photos. Thanks for your great work. Love your insightful comments. Looking at upgrading to the iPad 10 for light internet browsing, notes, and calendar for when I'm at home. Yeah, I think it'll work great for that. Hopefully you don't have to wait that much longer. We should only be a couple of weeks away. I think it'll get announced next month, but Mark Gurman is still convinced that the budget iPad won't be ready until October. It's also complex to manufacture a product where some come with a charger and some don't. Yeah, I don't think they would make packages that would accommodate for it. They would probably just make all the iPhones with the same size package. And if they included a brick for free, you would have to get that in a whole separate box, which would be worse for the environment. So that's why I'm grateful they didn't offer it for free. It encourages you. It provides financial incentive for the consumer to reuse what they already have, rather than buy new things that they don't need. My wife has the 10R and we are upgrading next month. We wanted to get a 13 since usually the older ones decrease in price. Do you think the 13 line will drop, or will inflation keep it the same price? You know, even during tough times, Apple's had surprisingly low prices on last year's model. So I do still think the 13 will go down. I think it'll be, what is it now? $829 unlocked? Yeah, it'll probably be $729 in a couple weeks. I think that's pretty likely. I'd be kind of surprised at this point if they just killed off the 13 entirely. But even if that's the case, I think they would be available at Best Buy or Amazon at discounted rates. Based on the pattern of how Apple does their software support, I predict the iPhone 8 and 10 will get 8 years of software. Wow. Yeah, that would be impressive. It's not that crazy considering the A11 chip is still reasonably capable for the time. I feel like Apple Silicon over time just gets better and better and ages more appropriately. And yeah, like my mom still uses my old iPhone 10 and she loves it. She replaced the battery in it because the battery was getting old. But after she replaced the battery, she said it was good as new. No complaints. Was it ever a dream of yours to work for Apple? A little bit when I was younger, I thought, but never long term. I never wanted like my career to be at Apple. I thought it might be fun when I was like back when I was in high school. I thought if I'm out of high school and I just need a place to work and I want to make money and pursue YouTube, I still wanted to do YouTube full time back then. And I still do now. I still want to do YouTube full time. But my thought process was like I'd move to a place where there's more, I used to have this thought process that I need to move to a big city and I'd have contacts and I would collaborate with other YouTubers or I would find studios that could hire me in for video work. And if I needed to, find a job that can pay the bills and keep the lights on, I would work at an Apple store because I really like Apple products and I seem to know a lot about them, or at least somewhat knowledgeable about Apple products. And I would just apply for an Apple store. And I had some friends when I was younger that, or older friends that I wasn't super close with, but my older sister was more close with, that worked at Apple stores. So I got to talk to them about it. And I'd also just hung out and talked to Apple employees at stores quite often. And they had told me that, yeah, that like I like working here and the pay is pretty good. And they get, at least back then, they were paid over minimum wage. So as a starter job to kind of pay the bills as I pursue other careers, I thought maybe I could work at an Apple store. But it was never like my end goal. I never wanted to just one day show up to the Apple spaceship every day and that's just where I work. Because I don't really think I have a specific set of skills that Apple would find useful. All I can really do is tell Apple how I think hardware should work, and I don't think or software should work. And I don't think that's a very helpful job to them. Basically what Steve Jobs did, I could do that, He didn't write software. He didn't do much hardware engineering. He basically just worked with engineers and said, hey, I wanted to do this. It should be smaller. And now I wanted to do this. And, he probably got more into the weeds on how possible certain things were. But that's not a common, I don't think they're hiring people to do that. And I don't think I would enjoy it as much as this job. I like the flexibility and the freedom of this job. I like interacting with you guys. And I also am a huge fan of speculation. And if I worked at Apple, I couldn't really do much speculation. I couldn't I wonder what they're going to do for the next gen, or maybe they should do this, or I wish they would do this. And I feel like I get to be very honest and genuine with YouTube. I get to, if Apple does something I don't like, I get to complain about it, and I get to, disagree with people online about it and say what I think they should do. And if I worked for Apple, I'd be all locked down contract-wise. I couldn't really complain, or I couldn't talk about certain things, or I couldn't speculate on certain things. So even if Apple offered me a job, I don't think I would enjoy it as much as I enjoy this. I like my job. I think this is fun. I would rather do this. Do you think Apple will ever give their iPhones or other devices 10 years of software support? Yeah, I think they're close with some Macs, right? I think some Macs have gotten software support for 8 years already. You only have to go back to 2014, and that's around 8 years. So yeah, as Apple Silicon gets faster and we get like laws of diminishing returns, I think there will be eventually a point. I don't know if it's devices that they're selling today. Maybe in 4 or 5 years, those products might get 10 years of software support. But yeah, I think we'll get there. Do you think there will be an AirPods Pro 2 this September? Oh, that's right. We haven't talked about AirPods Pro 2 in a while, but those are rumored to come out. I think Quo said Q4, and he's usually right about AirPods launches. He's not right about everything, but he was spot on with AirPods 3. And there were other reporters claiming AirPods 3 is coming earlier. AirPods 3 is coming in the spring. It's coming at dub, and it didn't. And he was right about it launching later in the year. So I trust him on that. So I think it'll probably be October, Philip. It probably wouldn't be September. But yeah, we shouldn't have to wait too much longer for an AirPods Pro upgrade. Joe says, I picked up a cheap $200 MacBook Pro 15-inch base model, and it still runs like a charm. Yeah, that's the nice thing about a lot of Apple products is that even if they don't get software support, they still typically run pretty well. The brick gate has become what headphone jack gate was, as Apple was the first to remove it and get violated by all companies, yet within a year, everyone followed. Now it's just a feature to have a brick plus jack. I know. That's what they do. That's why I tell all these other tech companies, don't mock Apple for doing something, because you're probably going to end up doing the exact same thing. MacBooks get about 7 years of feature updates plus 2 more years of security updates. So yeah, they're pretty close to 10 already. You think the next Mac Mini will have the M2 Pro option? Any M2 Max Mini this year? I feel like if you do an M2 Max, you're basically at a Mac Studio at that point. So why would they make an M2 Max Mac Mini? It's the same silicon, I guess. If you want more ports, yeah, it's too weird. I think that they might do a Pro Mini, but it would cost more. It would probably be like $1,200 for a Mac Mini with the M2 Pro chip. But then if you want something better than the M2 Pro, you'll get the Mac Studio. But the truth is, the CPU performance between the M1 Pro and the M1 Max is basically identical. A lot of people forget that most of the differences are with the GPU. So that would imply that the Mac Mini would honestly have very close performance to that of the Mac Studio, and at a cheaper price, that would be a bargain or a steal. So they would have to probably limit it in some way. It might be thermally limited, or the ports wouldn't be as good. So people would be like, yeah, it's really good, but the Mac Studio is technically a little bit better, or something like that. What would AirPod Pro 2 have besides on-the-case speaker? There's talks about higher fidelity audio, longer battery life. What do you want? Just name some things. Probably that. The Find My support, I guess. Katrina says they think AirPods Pro 2 will be a site refresh. There have been a lot of AirPods site refreshes over the years, so that wouldn't be the most shocking thing. But they did do AirPods 3 in an event. So before that, they never talked about AirPods during events. They always did site refreshes, which I was like, I don't know why, but that's just the way they've done it. But now that they've actually announced AirPods during an event, I'm like, okay, they'll probably do it again. I'm actually very happy that you answered my question. Oh, great, Philip. I'm glad you could catch this one. Yeah, sorry. I try to live stream whenever I can, but there's a lot of videos and a lot of stuff going on that I'm trying to manage. Not bad stuff, just busy life stuff with, watching people and driving around family and all that. It's weird to think that the M1 Pro is only available on a laptop, while the standard M1 and M1 Max are available in both laptop and desktop. That does feel a little bit backwards, huh? I guess it kind of makes sense that No, it doesn't make sense, huh? The higher performing chip is available in a laptop. And so is I guess it's kind of logical. The lower powered chip goes in laptops. Higher powered chips goes in laptops and desktops. It feels fair. M1 Pro and M1 Max have the exact same CPU except for the base model 14-inch. The difference is GPU and RAM. Correct. Thank you, Babasik. Did I miss any discussion on the next Apple Watch? Not really. There's not really much news to report since the last time we talked about it, which is just that the Apple Watch Series 8 is probably going to be mostly the same, but there will be a Pro variant that will probably have better battery life and a bigger display and maybe new health sensors, but it'll cost like $900 to $1,000, and most people will say it's not worth it, and I probably agree with them. I long press live photos on a daily basis, but live wallpaper used it just a few times. I find the stock live wallpapers very interesting and stylish, though. I will miss them. Are there not stock wallpapers anymore? I feel like you can keep it pretty stock if you wanted to. I know it's random, but could we see a new HomePod plus Apple TV this September, as it's been 2 to 3 years since there was an update? Also, since it's the budget iPad is coming in October. They need a filler. Uh, Apple can pull filler out of thin air. Don't worry about that. They could have a whole event just out of the Apple Watch and the iPhone 14. I don't think you need more than that to fill an event, but it's not been that long. I mean, we got a new Apple TV last year. I guess it's been over a year now, and we got the HomePod Mini 2 years ago, year and a half ago. There's been talk about a Apple TV that improves the cost structure. I'm not sure what that means. Whether it means it's possible that they just don't want to manufacture the A12 chip anymore, so they might just update the Apple TV with the A14 chip and say like, "Hey, it's better now." But in reality, it's just for manufacturing reasons. It's not because the A14 chip would actually change much on your TV. But hopefully, I really hope that they actually make a lower cost, more accessible Apple TV dongle with less of an emphasis on gaming and more just streaming. Because tvOS is great, but I just hate that entry price. I hate the cost of that TV box. It's not worth it. What does my daily ecosystem look like now? So I've tried to use the iPad again, but frankly, all my thumbnails have still been done on the iPhone. I just know that once I start using continuity camera, I'm going to need another device. So I brought my iPad Pro over here. Actually, my wife has been using it a lot once I brought it over, just as a little TV. She loves watching her shows on it, and it's very portable. So when she's in the kitchen or, in the bedroom and she wants to watch something, the iPad is just what she goes to. But for my daily ecosystem, I still use AirPods Pro pretty much for everything I need headphones for. iPhone 13 Pro Max, 16-inch MacBook Pro, Apple Watch Series 7. Occasionally use my iMac Pro kind of as not external monitor, but like a separate, it's like a TV Mac. If I'm doing stuff on my MacBook and I want to be watching a video at the same time, I put it up on the iMac because it has better speakers and it's a bigger screen. So, and I also have an Apple TV, but because I'm at my grandparents', I don't have it here with me. But that would be in my daily ecosystem if I were at home. Whoever owned my car last was a total slob. There's crap everywhere. Maybe it was me, Alpha. There's a good chance. I'm kind of a slob. I use my iPad Air a lot as a mini TV and also some stuff that needs Apple Pencil. That's what I've really run out of. Even when getting the Apple, I think it's still here. Is it back here? Yeah. Now that I've used Subject Lift so often, I never use the Apple Pencil for anything. I don't do note taking. I don't do doodling. I don't do drawing. It's just not what I do with my free time. This is an expensive TV. I paid $1,000 for it in 2018, and it's also like a whole 120 hertz, 10-hour battery life, USB-C, great speakers. I mean, could you find a more portable TV than an iPad that's cheaper than that? Probably not. Yeah, Mike, I admitted the iMac Pro in very specific situations is better than my MacBook Pro. Correct. The black bezeled iMac Pro. And my company MacBooks are not really used as company laptops. Any input I can forward for why it would be beneficial. I really want to use a Mac at work. Probably not, because at work they're likely motivated by software that's only available on Windows, or all of their IT department is trained in Windows, or it's motivated by the cost of PC laptops, which are much cheaper than MacBooks. I guess the only thing you might be able to push is that MacBooks are known for lasting longer on average. They're made usually of better materials and they have pretty good battery management systems, so longer battery life as well. So I guess if battery life is important or longevity is important, that's probably the only argument you're going to have, but that's likely not going to work very well against, sorry, this is in the budget and IT is trained in XYZ, which is only on Windows. Oh, my iMac Pro is a TV. Well, I used it for a lot more than that over the years. Until the M1 Max MacBook Pro was available, there was really no Mac that competed with that iMac Pro for the money I paid. It had 4 Thunderbolt ports, it had a 1080p webcam, it had a great sound system, great thermals, very fast for the time. And even when the M1 they didn't update the iMac Pro. They basically dropped it and then left it there for years, and then they killed it off. And there were some 27-inch iMacs that came out down the road that were pretty fast, but I don't think they surpassed the iMac Pro. Or if they did, it wasn't by much. And there were compromises. So even if you got the 2019 27-inch iMac and maybe a certain spec of that could outperform my iMac Pro, but it still had worse I/O, and I think it still even had a worse webcam. The speaker system was not as great. Again, less ports on the back, which I was using. And the design wasn't that different ultimately, and the thermals were worse. So if you were in a power-intensive situation, the silver 27-inch iMacs got really, really loud, which was a big deal for me because I do these live streams. So the audio that the Mac creates is important to me. So there was really no other Mac. They did the Mac Pro, of course, but I wasn't doing that because it was insanely expensive, and I don't like having towers. I prefer all-in-ones. So that iMac Pro, for my workflow and for my budget, was basically unbeatable for the entire length I used it. I edited all my videos on it, and it did great, and it honestly still works really well. It's just that my MacBook is faster now. And even when the M1 chip came out, with the Mac Mini, I thought like, oh, maybe once Apple makes the jump to silicon, I can buy a MacBook with an M1 chip and that'll be faster. But it wasn't faster. Even the M1 chip wasn't faster than the iMac Pro. It wasn't until the M1 Pro and M1 Max chips came out that I actually started getting faster export times with Apple Silicon. So basically, once that day came and it was possible that, hey, I can buy a Mac for under $6,000 that was actually faster than my iMac Pro, then I upgraded. But before this laptop existed, that wasn't really a thing. The only Macs that outperformed my iMac Pro were $6,000+ and they didn't come with a monitor, and they weren't mobile, and they shipped with 256 gigs of storage by default, which is unacceptable for me, and I don't want a NAS. David says our software doesn't run on Mac either. I wish I could use Macs at work. Yeah, that's why I like my job, that's for sure. Let's see. I'm concerned that if/when I get an office job, I'll have to use Windows for work. That is a bummer, huh? My dad had to do that quite a bit too, and my wife, she has to use a Chromebook. Well, back when she was at her old job, she had to use a Chromebook, and it sucked. Chromebooks suck so much. My sister-in-law just got a Chromebook for school, and I just used it the other night briefly because they were asking me how to print on Chrome OS, which was annoyingly confusing. The print button didn't want to hook up to the printer. Even when I hit print, it just wanted to save it as a PDF. And I was just like, no, you're connected to a printer, you should print. And ugh, it's gross. I don't care for Chromebooks that much. I used to call them back in the day Happy Meal laptops. They're like laptops that you always get for free. If all you want to do is Google Chrome, I guess, but man, those keyboards and those trackpads and those speakers and those displays, they suck. Suck so much. I work in it. My colleagues have no idea about Macs, not in use at home company, so they ask me about the few that we have. I got you. That's fair. I'm forced to use 5-year-old Chromebooks for school. I feel like a lot of people are. They're just so dang cheap. The school's just like, oh, a laptop. We can say all our kids get laptops. That sounds cool. Everyone buy a laptop. Ugh. Chromebooks are so useful when the internet goes out. Well, computers can't do much at all when the internet goes out, but yeah, Chromebooks and especially. Yeah, Windows 10 was terrible for me. Windows 7 was pretty good, but I just had the most terrible experiences with Windows 10. I haven't tried Windows 11 to be fair, but it might be better now, but nothing Microsoft has going for it right now is very tempting to me. Like software-wise, I'm pretty comfortable with Final Cut. I love the ecosystem, and I haven't seen any feature or any program on Windows that it's like, ooh, I want to try that out. Maybe it's just my lifestyle is mostly video creation, and I feel like Macs are more optimized for that. Marngel says, I find a $200 MacBook that's 7 years old more useful than a Chromebook that costs 5 times the price. It'll at least feel better to actually have a laptop with an aluminum enclosure and like a halfway decent trackpad. Even the old MacBook trackpads are so much better than the Chromebook trackpads of today. It's so mushy. The whole machine feels like it's gonna, just plugging in a simple USB-A port. The Chromebook, like, I needed to plug in the Chromebook to the printer here because the printer's not like wireless or whatever. So I plug it in, and well, I'm trying to plug it in, and it's really hard. I was like, what am I doing? Am I plugging it in wrong? Like, I thought I looked at, you're supposed to like look at the USB-A port and you see where the little plastic tab is, so you know which way to plug it in. Stupid design, by the way. I hate USB-A with a passion. It's just, who would design something that's symmetrical but not reversible? Who thought that was okay to do? Anyway, I hate how common USB-A is. It's still everywhere. I was trying to plug it into the Chromebook, and it wasn't going in. And I thought, it must be upside down or I'm missing something. So I checked it, and I was like, no, that's right. Like, that's the way it's supposed to go in. I had to push so freaking awkwardly. And it plugged right into the back of my grandma's computer just fine. USB-A was just like, boom, boom. It was fine. But with the Chromebook, it was like, ugh! And I think they put the port in there wrong or something, or it was misaligned. Or I plug in a lot of cables in my time, even USB-A cables, and that was not normal. Something was wrong with that Chromebook's port alignment. I don't even know who made it. I didn't even care to look at the brand, but my God, it's disgusting. Windows, Microsoft Office is better compared to Mac Microsoft Office. Excel is way better. Well, that doesn't surprise me. I just wouldn't use Microsoft Office personally. I feel like there's very specific things that Microsoft Office has that people are convinced they need. At least in my experience, like, I wanted to use more free programs, whether it's Google Docs or Google Sheets, and I still use Google Docs and Sheets, and Apple Pages, Apple Numbers, and they have a lot of spreadsheet options, and they work really well for me. But whenever I tried to use them back when I was in high school, people were like, no, you can't use that. And I was like, why? It was like, because Microsoft Office has this one, like, space. It lets us do 1.75 spacing, or some very specific thing like that. I don't know if it was spacing exactly, but it's always some like very obscure, like, we need it to be this. And I was like, 1.5 spacing isn't good enough for you? And they're like, no, can't be 1.5. It's got to be 1.75. And Microsoft Office isn't free. You got to pay to use Office, where there's all of these free programs you can use that work great. You can still type on them. You can still write spreadsheets. You can still fill a bunch of things with complex numbers. Like, my wife has this whole net worth calculator spreadsheet, and it adds all these charts together. It's like very sophisticated, and it works, and it's free, and it's on your phone, it's on your laptop, it's web-based, so it's saved. You don't have to worry about saving progress and all that. And yet everyone in school was convinced you have to use Office, and Office isn't free, so you have to sign up with this student because the school pays for it. It felt like the school had bought this huge software package, and they were like forcing everyone to use it. It didn't matter if there was some better alternative. Jacob says Windows 10 is hideous and sloppy, and Windows 11 is 10, but with a skin on it that doesn't even go over all the aspects of the UI. That's how I felt like with Windows 10. You didn't get Office for free at school. No, I did. I just know it wasn't free. Like, I know that if I wasn't in school, it wouldn't be free, which annoyed me. I was like, I'm already using Docs, and I'm already using Pages. I'm already using other programs for free, but they want me to sign up with a school email and have another password just so that I can use their bought and paid for Microsoft Office, which I didn't find that much different. It was weird. But no, the school didn't make me pay for Office. They made everyone use Office because they paid for it, which felt wasteful. Chromebooks have decent voice typing, though, much better than my Windows computer. Well, it's kind of a vague term. Chromebooks is covering like hundreds of different models. There's a lot of different versions of Chromebook. Some might have better voice typing than others. I believe that. Katrina says Windows 11 feels like a fake clone of macOS. I really haven't used it. I'm curious now that you guys are saying, if it feels like macOS, then I'll like it. I want it to feel more like macOS. That's fine. Anyone who wants USB-A on our MacBooks again needs therapy. You're saying Nick needs therapy. No, wait, he doesn't want that. You're saying Nick doesn't need therapy. I don't know if I agree with that. Which iPhone 14 do you get? So I'm just reviewing one. I don't plan on actually upgrading. I'll just review it for the channel, but then I'll stick with my 13. Probably the 14 Pro Max. Have I used macros in Excel? No, but I haven't needed to. There's not that many instances I've run into, but I use spreadsheets a lot. I use a lot of spreadsheets, usually just off my phone though. Nick's Hobby Channel says, I like the updated design of Windows 11, but not the extra pages I have to go into to do simple tasks like changing folder names. Really? Several pages. I did hear recently that LumaFusion is coming to Chrome OS in the near future. I wonder how that will turn out. It would be interesting if they actually had some decent hardware in the Chromebooks, but they probably don't have very good ones. It looks superficially like macOS, but doesn't actually work like it. Okay. Sounds like I wouldn't love it. I've never tried the Sony Xperia, but I don't think I would based on what I've seen from them. Sorry. Have I ever tried Apple Certified Refurbished? Yes, I bought an old Apple TV through them, and it was basically brand new. And I've recommended Certified Refurbished lots of times, iPads and iPhones, and everyone who's bought it has said that it basically feels brand new. Behind the scenes, do you buy Apple products for a review and then return them? Lol, or no comment? No, I've been open about that. We've talked about it. Yeah, I've done that many times. Sometimes I sell it if I can find someone that's in need of one and they would like to get it faster so they don't have to ship it to them. So I ask around always whenever I get a product. I'm like, hey, do you have a need for this? Do you have a need for this? And sometimes I find a buyer. But if I can't find a buyer, I'll just return it. And I returned the M2 MacBook Air straight to the Apple store. And the Apple employee recognized me, which was kind of funny. He was like, hey, welcome. Let me help you out with that. Also, love your channel. I was like, oh, thanks, man. And he was like, yeah, so you're all done with this? You just don't need it? I was like, yeah, I think my MacBook Pro gets the job done good enough. And he was like, all right, cool. Like, they don't care. Apple makes a lot of money. They're allowed to turn off return policies on individuals, you know. So if you return too many times, legally, they are allowed to say you can't return anymore. And they haven't told me to stop returning. So if they ask me to stop, then I'll stop. It's that simple. Same thing happened when with Amazon. I used to buy older products on Amazon and review them and return them. And Amazon was like, hey, you've been returning too many things. If you keep this up, we'll revoke your returning privileges. So I stopped. I don't think it hurts them that bad because they just refurbish the product and resell it, and they still get most of their money out of it. And they would lose a ton of money by not having a return policy. If people were aware that everything you bought, it was final and you couldn't take it back, that would turn a lot of people off from buying a lot of Apple products. So if you've listened to their earnings calls, I think you understand Apple's fine. They're not hurting for money. Refurbished products save money and the environment. Yeah, and I think I've probably helped Apple more than I've hurted them with my recommendations and showing people what they can be used for, and all the comments I get about I used to be on Android or I used to be on Windows. And I mean, Model Y Mike in the chat probably would not have been spending as much money as he is on Apple products if it weren't for me just hanging out and finding out what all these Apple products do. Once people watch my videos, they just suddenly feel like spending more on Apple products. It's weird. I think I make them a lot of money. Yeah. Chris Norton, thank you for the super chat. He says, my PC is new and Microsoft weren't letting it update. They say my PC, the good side, no forced updates. Uh-oh. Is new. Microsoft weren't letting it update. That's weird. Huh. Well, I hope they don't force any updates on you, Chris. Drew has been a bane to my wallet's existence. That's true. I have been very hard on Mike's wallet. Is an Apple Mac Pro good for gaming? Not really. I wouldn't recommend it. If you're buying a computer the cost of a Mac Pro, then you could buy a much better gaming PC. Let's see. I have issues, and I'm probably going to get the 14 Pro Max. He says, I love Apple. I have issues, and I'm probably... What does the I have issues have to do with anything? Anyway, if I'm not careful, I'm going to live stream all day. So I appreciate the super chats, and I appreciate the new channel members, but I'm going to sign off here, get working on some other projects. I appreciate you all for tuning in, and I hope you have an excellent rest of your day. Thank you all. Bye-bye.